Everybody, thank you very much for taking time out of your day for this. I appreciate that very much. Just a quick little bit of background about me. I have been in the Navy for a long time, 22 years, almost 23. As a matter of fact, last night in Randolph, New York, I got promoted from commander, which is an 05, or a lieutenant colonel in the other forces, to captain, which is an 06, which is the same as a colonel in the Army or the Air Force and Marines. Had an admiral come in to do the promotion ceremony, a friend of mine, and it meant a lot to me. A lot of friends and family there, and being in the military is a big part of my life. My dad was in the Army. Both of my grandfathers were in the Army. I have a sister who was an Air Force officer. I have a brother who was an Air Force officer. So we got Air Force, Army, and Navy right there. It's like a joint task force right there in the middle of Randolph, New York. I'm a fourth generation Western New Yorker. I grew up in the Jamestown area, a little town called Randolph, it's the Jamestown area. And growing up, I knew my great-grandmas that came over from Italy. I knew my Nana, she's still alive, she's in a nursing home. My grandma, she was a Rose of the River in World War II. While her husband was in World War II, she was Rose of the River at Art Sheet Metal. My mom and her brother were the first to go to college. And then my three sisters and my brother and I, with really anything we want to do laid out for us. And it's basically been driving my desire to get back to the country ever since. So, I just want to talk about submarines for a second. Please grab a seat. I was a submarine officer, which is pretty cool, not gonna lie. I think submarines are cool. And I was a junior officer in a submarine. I was the main propulsion assistant this one year that we were out to sea, and that meant I was in charge of all the pipes and all of the pumps and all of the steam piping and valves in the engine room. And we developed this little problem called a steam leak. And a steam leak can be really dangerous because steam is really hot and it can kill you. And we had some steam piping that had a very small failure in it, basically a pinhole leak, which meant a little bit of steam was coming out. And my men came to me and they said, "Mr. Plumb, we got a steam leak, we're going to have to fix this thing, let's go look at it." And we looked at it, it was a little tiny thing like this. Oh, we better do something about this. And started scratching our head, what should we do? But the thing about a steam leak is, it keeps getting worse. So it starts as a small hole, but as the steam pushes through, the hole gets a little bit bigger. And then when the hole's bigger, more steam comes through, and now the plume's bigger, and now the hole keeps getting bigger, so it accelerates. The hole gets bigger, the steam comes out faster, and now it gets worse faster. And this is one of these issues where literally it's a problem that gets worse the longer you don't do anything about it. Now, what you do on a submarine when you have a problem that's getting worse, if you don't do anything about it, that could hurt everybody, is you fix it. Because that's so obvious, I can't believe I have to say it, but you fix it. Just as if the roof was leaking in your house, and you see drip, 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 you wouldn't wait for the roof to fall in, you'd fix the leak. And if you blow your tire out on I-86, you don't wait for the other 4 tires to blow out before you think about doing something, you fix it. And I think the fact that I have to even explain that fundamental principle of when something is broken and making things worse, you fix it, is sad. But our Congress is so busy pointing fingers at each other and trying to blame each other instead of getting any results done. There's a lot of problems accelerating in our country right now, and I blame them, and frankly, I blame Tom Root. And one issue I want to talk about today that we should be working on actual results instead of pointing fingers is veterans issues. And in particular, as a rural veteran myself and the son of a rural veteran, we've worked on veterans issues in rural America because that is a unique set of challenges that is different than what we have in urban areas, and we need to make sure we understand the differences if we're ever getting anything done. So I have to put these on there. All right, so too often, our veterans are left with only empty declarations of support. Partisan politics in Congress has already resulted in funding cuts and reduced benefits, and while there are a number of programs in existence, it's often too hard for veterans to get access to these programs, especially in rural communities. Now, that's not fair to our veterans. It's not fair to our rural communities who could benefit from their skill sets and dedication. Now, this district alone has over 50,000 veterans. And like I said, I have a personal stake in ensuring that veterans and their families have access to the support and services they need to be successful. Across the country, over 5 million veterans live in rural communities. And more rural veterans are, I'm going to pretend that I'm younger, but younger age, right? So we have a man right here who served in the Korean War. And I thank you for that service, sir. I was in Operation Enduring Freedom, and 30% of guys and gals coming back from Operation Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, New Dawn, and current operations are moving to rural areas. So the demographic of our rural veteran population is changing as well. And if you live in a rural area as a vet, there's a lot of barriers to accessing those care and benefits that you've earned. Just as an example, there's provider and specialist shortages, there's long travel times, limited economic opportunities, and we have to address these challenges if we're going to take care of our vets. So what I think the solution is to push towards an integrated whole-of-person approach. A whole-of-person care model would be focused on improving access and quality of services for veterans, specifically in rural communities. And to keep faith with our veterans, I've outlined 5 bullet points here. They're in the policy paper here that you've seen in more detail. I'm just going to go through them briefly. First, expand economic opportunities for veterans in rural America. It's pretty simple. Our veterans need jobs. Those of us that have served, or those of us that know people who serve, you know you learn valuable skills in the military. Some are easy to transition to civilian world. Some take a little work, but you learn valuable skills, and we need to take advantage of those and have them help our civilian workforce. One way to help with that, make sure we're expanding programs that expedite licensing procedures. For instance, if someone is trained as a combat medic, having them easier access to become a paramedic. So emergency medical care, health care, education fields, all of these things exist in the military that we can bring home. And even, for instance, there are men and women who are trained as firefighters in the military, and that should allow them to come home and serve as firemen and firewomen here in our district. And for veterans who want to start or grow a small business, we need to make sure that they have the same resources available and have access to those resources that you would if you lived in a city with more government institution support networks. So for example, expanding access to capital that's allowed to veteran-owned businesses. There are no interest loans available for veterans who want to build a business. And we need to make sure that in rural areas people know about that and can have access to it. And I think that'll help drive investment and growth in our small towns. We want to make our rural areas, we want to make the southern tier thrive. This is part of that solution. Next, we need to align education with military experience. So here's the fundamental thing. I have friends that have served before they went to college. Now they try to use a post-9/11 GI Bill, for example, to go to college. And it turns out that if you've done 6 or 8 or 10 years or even 4 years in the military, one, you're not 18 years old anymore, straight math. And two, you've got a whole different set of experiences and life skills that someone going straight into college from high school doesn't have. And that means there's a mismatch. And some guys and gals, it's okay. Some have a harder time trying to integrate into a traditional college program. And we need to recognize this difference and work to help them. If people want to receive their college degree, let's make sure we're maximizing their chances for success. This could include developing college programs for veterans who, for any number of reasons, might need to take more time. Maybe they've got kids. Maybe it's hard for them to go full-time all the time, so maybe they need to take 5 or 6 years. I don't think that that should be a disqualifier for being able to access your GI Bill and get your college degree. And I also support efforts to require colleges and universities that are receiving federal funds, yes, that's all of them, including community colleges, to grant college credit for training gainable in the armed forces. There are different things you learn in the armed forces that are applicable to college credit, and there should be, not everything, but there are different things you can say that this is worth this type of credit and make it seamless so you can help speed a transition into college and to earn the degree. And people have to know about these benefits in the first place. So I think that what Congress should be able to do here is pass legislation directing the executive branch to develop an integrated plan for veterans to help guide them towards the best package of educational benefits at the lowest cost to the veteran and the highest number of credits over the shortest period of time. So I think we need to coordinate and integrate this type of information and programs that are already available. Next, improve access and quality of health care. There's 21 million veterans living in the United States. We all still know the problems with the VA over the past couple of years have just been atrocious, and things are slowly progressing, but there are serious problems that need to be fixed. And in rural areas, it's even worse because delays are longer, issues with access to care can be very problematic, and it takes a long time to get back and forth to your service site. And it turns out that rural veterans are less likely to access health services for both physical and mental illness, and they often lack the access to full spectrum quality health care services that many veterans might need. So while the VA is being fixed, vets need to be able to receive care from providers within the private system, and the problem right now is it's not being done very well. We need to expand collaborations and health information exchanges between VA and non-VA providers. And if we're going to really focus on rural areas, we're going to talk about this 40-mile rule. This 40-mile rule has become sort of a set of handcuffs on our veterans. Right now, if you live within 40 miles of a VA facility, either a hospital or a clinic, then you can't schedule private care. And the problem is clinics don't really offer a full-scale suite of medical services. That's why they're called a clinic and not a hospital. And so I think there needs to be a better balance. One particular thing I do want to mention here is revising our approach to mental health and well-being. This is a big issue. It's a big issue for me personally because I have friends suffering from these issues. One of the most challenging and important tests we face is how to address the issues of mental health and well-being among veterans of all ages. Now, there has been measurable progress made among those veterans inside the VA system who have been diagnosed with mental health conditions. So for those who have made it into the mental health diagnosis inside the VA system, we've seen a reduction in suicide rates, and that's important. But in rural areas, rural veterans remain at a heightened risk of suicide. And part of this is the long distances to get care. Part of it is because there's not a lot of mental health care available compared perhaps to an urban area. Lack of expertise in treating PTSD, typically those only accumulate in areas where there's a high number of veterans in a local area. And there's also local stigmas about mental health disorders. And we need to change how to view mental health to support anyone who is seeking care, instead of letting outdated rules and bureaucracy prevent veterans from getting care when they reach out. We should focus on bringing veterans in so they can get real long-term treatment aimed at understanding and caring for their mental health and well-being. Now, I have friends with PTSD. They are strong. And they deserve our respect and support. And nobody with a mental health problem that is seeking care should be turned away at the door because they're not through the bureaucracy yet. And they shouldn't be told the only option they have right now is to go to the emergency room and check themselves in at a local hospital and be placed on suicide watch. And this happens. This happens every day. And this is a problem. We need a more responsive system that recognizes for some of our most vulnerable veterans, we have to respond when they show up. And the other thing that's hard is it's hard to get into that system. And if you're having a mental health problem, say depression, these barriers become even more difficult. And you may even need a mentor to help get you through it. And we need a system that responds to that problem and recognizes it says come. Finally, we've got to make sure we're supporting our military families. Our families of military service members serve right alongside them, and they deserve our support too. And it's critical that we solidify their existing benefits. There's benefits for families in the post-9/11 GI Bill, and we need to support efforts to ensure family members have access to support when they need it. And this includes making veterans of all eras eligible for caregiver support services, ensuring that caregivers for those with severe service-related mental illnesses receive support, provide assistance with child care, and provide mental health support to the caregiver directly if needed. And I also support efforts to provide immediate families and caregivers of our veterans with information and training on how to better identify and respond to potential problems like opioid addiction or PTSD. It's not that every veteran returning from conflict has these problems, but some do. And the problem is if a family doesn't know what to look for, it can often be too late by the time they realize they need help. So we should be helping them understand and recognize the symptoms of PTSD ahead of time. And these symptoms can emerge years later. They can emerge years later after discharge and this will help get them access to the resources they need. And similar with opioid epidemic, I support efforts to train and support family members and caregivers on how to best manage opioid pain relief, symptoms of unhealthy use, and options for treatment. And finally, we can utilize the first-hand experiences of older veterans and their families to expand rural community networks to teach and support each other. So just to wrap up, I wanted to use this quote from President Lincoln's second inaugural. It's on the wall of the Lincoln Memorial. He says that our country shall care for those who have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan. The United States forms a lasting compact with our service members and a lasting compact with their families from the moment they enter the military. And we need to keep that promise, and I take that mission to heart. I've been serving the country for 22 years. Every single day I've been proud to call Western New York my home. And I've also learned in the military that when you say you're going to do something, it's the results that matter, not just talk, not this endless talk from politicians. So we need to get results, and we're not going to do that until we fix our Congress. Our Congress is broken. It doesn't have to be that way. But if we're going to really fix these problems affecting our country, we've got to fix our Congress. That's why I'm running. That's why I think this election year is so important. And frankly, it's why I need your help. So thank you so much, and may God bless.